What if I told you that scientists just cracked open one of the greatest mysteries in North American archaeology? And the answer they found completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about one of the most powerful ancient civilizations on this continent. Stick with me, because what DNA is revealing about the people of Chaco Canyon is genuinely one of the most fascinating stories I have ever come across. And by the end of this video, you are going to see this place in a completely different way. Chaco Canyon sits in the middle of the New Mexico desert. And if you have never heard of it, picture this. Nearly 1,000 years ago, in the middle of one of the most unforgiving landscapes in North America, a civilization rose up and built something extraordinary. Massive stone buildings, some of the largest structures in the ancient world at that time, rising multiple stories high, perfectly aligned with the movements of the sun and moon. An entire road network stretching hundreds of miles across the desert, connecting dozens of communities. This was not a small settlement. This was a capital, a center of power, a place that people traveled enormous distances to reach. And for centuries, we had almost no idea who actually ran it. That is the mystery. Who were the elite of Chaco Canyon? Who held the power? Who made the decisions? Who lived in the great houses while everyone else lived outside the walls? Archaeologists have been arguing about this for decades, and the theories ranged from democratic councils to rotating leadership to outside influence from Mesoamerican cultures far to the south. But here is the thing about theories. They can only take you so far when the evidence in the ground stays silent. And for a long time, Chaco stayed very, very silent. Then, DNA science changed everything. Researchers decided to go back to some of the most carefully excavated burial sites ever found at Chaco Canyon. Specifically, a room that archaeologists had discovered over a century ago inside the great house known as Pueblo Bonito. This was not an ordinary burial site. The individuals found here were buried with an almost unbelievable quantity of offerings. Turquoise, shell jewelry, ceremonial objects, things that represented enormous wealth and status in the ancient Southwest. These were clearly not ordinary people. But what connected them? What made them special? And were they actually related to each other? This is where the DNA analysis becomes genuinely mind-blowing. When researchers extracted and analyzed the ancient genetic material from these burials, what they found was not what many people expected. The genetic signatures shared between these individuals revealed something that archaeologists had suspected but never been able to prove. This was a family. Not just a group of high-status individuals who happened to be buried in the same place, but actual biological relatives, members of a lineage that had controlled power at Chaco Canyon across multiple generations. Now, pause for a second and think about what that means. We are talking about a society that existed nearly 1,000 years ago in pre-Columbian North America. And what the DNA is telling us is that this society had a hereditary elite. Power was passed down through family lines. This changes the entire picture of how Chaco Canyon functioned as a civilization. Because for a long time, many researchers believed the ancient Southwest operated on more egalitarian principles, where leadership was shared or earned rather than inherited. But it gets even more interesting than that, because the DNA also told researchers something specific about how this lineage passed its power down. When they looked at the mitochondrial DNA, which is the genetic material passed exclusively from mothers to their children, they found a consistent pattern across multiple generations of these high-status burials. The line of succession, the way power moved through this family, appears to have followed the maternal line. Mothers passing power to their children, generation after generation, in a system that researchers describe as matrilineal inheritance. Now, for anyone familiar with Pueblo cultures today, this might actually ring a bell. Many of the modern Pueblo peoples, who are descended from ancestral southwestern cultures, have matrilineal clan systems at the heart of their social organization. So what the DNA is suggesting is that this is not just some ancient curiosity. This may be a deep cultural thread, a way of organizing society and transferring power that stretches back potentially 1,000 years or more into the past and connects directly to living communities today. Think about the human story buried in that data for a moment. A mother in Chaco Canyon, almost 1,000 years ago, living in one of the most powerful places in North America at that time, passing her status and her authority to her children, who then passed it to theirs. And that pattern, that cultural logic, echoing forward across the centuries. That is not just archaeology. That is a connection between the ancient world and the living present. But here is where I want to push deeper, because the DNA story does not stop at the burial room. It opens up bigger questions about where these people came from in the first place. One of the lingering debates about Chaco Canyon has always been whether it developed entirely from within the local Southwest, or whether outside influences played a significant role in its rise. Some researchers have pointed to architectural similarities with cultures much further south. Others have argued for entirely local development. The genetic analysis adds another layer to this conversation because it helps researchers understand the population dynamics of who was actually living at and around Chaco, and whether there were distinct groups with different origins present at the site. What emerges from the broader genetic picture is a sense of just how complex and interconnected the ancient Southwest actually was. Chaco Canyon was not an isolated outpost. It was a hub. People moved through it, traded in it, came to it for ceremonies and rituals that drew communities from across an enormous region. The roads that radiated out from Chaco were not just for moving goods. They were corridors of people and ideas and culture. And the genetics of the population reflects some of that complexity and movement. There is also something worth talking about here when it comes to the ethics and politics of ancient DNA research, because this is not a simple or uncontroversial field. The descendants of the people who built Chaco Canyon are still here. The Pueblo peoples of New Mexico and Arizona, the Navajo Nation, other indigenous communities of the Southwest, they have living connections to this place and to the people whose remains are being studied. And, for many indigenous communities, the scientific analysis of ancestral remains raises profound questions about respect, consent, and who gets to tell the story of the past. Some researchers in this field have worked closely with descendant communities to make sure that the insights being drawn from ancient DNA are developed in partnership with the people most directly connected to those ancestors. That kind of collaboration is not just ethically important, it is also scientifically better, because living cultural knowledge from descendant communities can help researchers interpret what the genetic data actually means in a human and social context. The science and the living culture inform each other in ways that pure laboratory analysis cannot achieve on its own. So where does all of this leave us in terms of what we actually know about Chaco Canyon? Let me bring it back together. DNA analysis has now given us strong evidence that Chaco Canyon was governed by a hereditary elite, a family dynasty that held power across multiple generations. That dynasty appears to have passed authority through the maternal line, connecting to broader patterns of social organization that persist in descendant communities today. And the genetic picture of the broader population reflects the complex, interconnected nature of the ancient Southwest, a world where people and ideas moved across vast distances. What makes this so significant is that it transforms Chaco from an archaeological puzzle into something more like a fully human story. These were not just builders of impressive structures or mysterious vanished people. They were political actors in a sophisticated society, members of families who strategized about power and legacy, participants in a living culture that did not disappear but transformed and continued. The buildings may be silent and crumbling now, but the DNA is speaking, and it is telling us something we could not have heard any other way. Here is the final thought I want to leave you with. Every time we develop a new tool for looking at the past, whether it is ground-penetrating radar, or satellite imaging, or ancient DNA analysis, we discover that the people who came before us were more complex, more sophisticated, and more fully human than older generations of researchers gave them credit for. The ancient Southwest was not a simple place. Chaco Canyon was not a primitive settlement. It was a civilization with dynasties and politics and cultural traditions. If you found this fascinating, there is so much more to explore about the ancient Southwest. And I have got more videos diving into some of the other extraordinary discoveries being made right now. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what is coming next, because the stories we are uncovering from the ancient world right now are some of the most remarkable things happening in science and history. I will see you in the next one.